I was kicked out as a teen for false rumors spread by my brother years later. Parents see my success and demand money after they abandon me. I am a 28-year-old female with a twin brother growing up. My twin brother and I experienced very different treatment from our parents. My parents genuinely seemed convinced for some reason that my brother was destined for greatness, while I was the so-called black sheep, just because I was more interested in playing sports or making new friends than studying. They constantly compared us, which was demoralizing and bruised my self-esteem from a young age. As a child, I had to watch my brother have extravagant parties on our birthday with his friends while I was treated like an afterthought. He often had sleepovers with his friends while I was never even allowed to bring my friends back to our place in Seattle. To be honest, I loathed every minute of my childhood. The only person in the family who seemed to care about me was my grandmother. When she visited us, she always brought me my favorite chocolates and occasionally slipped a few dollars to me so that I could treat myself later. As the years passed, this blatant favoritism for my twin brother gradually transformed into emotional abuse directed at me. My parents would openly mock my grades and belittle my hobbies. It felt as though no matter how much I tried, I could never meet their expectations of being the perfect child. Although I was good at sports, they barred me from participating in extracurricular activities as they wanted me to concentrate only on studies. Just like my brother, it was frustrating and I felt helpless. As a child, later in my sophomore year, I got grounded yet again, and this time the crime, having Snapchat on my phone. I had done absolutely nothing wrong, except like all teenagers at my age, I had downloaded this app to stay connected with my friends. However, according to my parents, this was a huge crime and a breach of their trust, as they had forbidden me from communicating with my friends. They went batshit crazy on me and threw all my stuff around the room. They then took the doors of my hinges and told me that I would have no privacy as long as I lived under their roof. Watching my parents abuse me this way, my twin brother, instead of supporting me, made my life worse. The toxic environment created by our parents' unjust actions allowed him to exploit the situation to his advantage. He adopted a pattern of lying about me, falsely accusing me of things I never did, so that he could get away with everything. If he stole something, he'd effortlessly shift the blame to me, and my parents, already inclined to believe the worst about me, readily accepted his lies. He would demean me in front of my friends at school in Denver and would make fun of my appearance. Despite this, I had a wide circle of friends at school because I was approachable and open to making connections. My twin, however, struggled socially, and he started to resent that I could talk to people while he, as an introvert, felt awkward. This jealousy reached a boiling point during our 14th birthday party when no one showed up for him on his birthday. I have no idea why his friends did that to him, but in stark contrast, my friends took me out for ice cream, and I had an overall wonderful day. This infuriated my brother further. To take revenge, my brother began to spread false rumors at school about me, where he would portray me as a spoiled brat. He would falsely tell everyone that I was allegedly physically abusing him at home since our parents loved him more. Unbeknownst to me, he took things to a disturbing level to fabricate evidence. He would punch himself, purposefully inflicting injuries like a black eye or bruised shoulder. The next day, he would confidently walk into school displaying the self-inflicted injuries as proof of my supposed violence and make up stories. Whenever our parents questioned him about the injuries, he would lie, saying that it was due to innocent activities like playing football with his friends. The lies and his alleged black eyes started to gain traction, and people began to believe his distorted version of events. It wasn't long before whispers started circulating, and even my friends began to look at me with suspicion. At first, I noticed subtle changes. Friends who once chatted with me in the hallways suddenly became distant. Invitations to group hangouts became fewer and farther between. It was like a switch had been flipped. One day, I mustered the courage to ask my ex-best friend why things had changed between us. She opened up about how my twin brother had been spreading rumors about me. She revealed the detailed lies he had told everyone, accusing me of things I had never done. I was shocked to hear her words. The feeling was a mix of disbelief and betrayal, as if the ground beneath me had given way. My brother, someone I grew up with, was spreading lies about me, accusing me of things I would never even dream of doing. It was a betrayal that cut deep, leaving me with a knot in my stomach and a heavy heart. I confronted my brother the day after our school in Miami, but he chose to ignore me. I begged him to stop lying about me, but he smirked at me and told me that I deserved to rot alone. I was at a loss for words because his lies and behavior were starting to scare me. I wanted to talk to my parents, but I was afraid that they would believe my brother over me. The isolation stung especially because I had always been open to making friends. It felt like my brother's jealousy-fueled lies were tearing down the connections I had built over the years. Teachers, too, began to catch wind of the rumors. It was a surreal experience, as if I were living in a parallel reality where my true self was overshadowed by the malicious stories spun by my own twin. The lies had grown beyond mere teenage gossip. They were now shaping how people truly perceive me. The nasty rumor quickly reached my principal's ears, and then my worst nightmare came true. The principal immediately called me and my brother into his room, as well as our parents, so we could discuss these alleged rumors. I sat there, heart pounding, as the principal demanded the truth. I hoped my brother would finally come clean, but instead he doubled down on the lies. He straight up told the principal that the rumors were true and painted me as this bully who went around beating him up when our parents weren't around. I couldn't believe it. Shock washed over me as my brother continued spinning this twisted story about how I was angry at him for getting more love from our parents. It was all a bunch of lies, but he stuck to his story like glue. My mom began to cry hearing my brother's story, holding on to him like he was some kind of hero. My dad tried to comfort him, telling him that it was brave for him to speak up and that he was going to make sure that nothing would ever happen to him. After that day, I tried to defend myself, pleading with the principal that it was all made up. I felt like I was drowning in a sea of accusations, desperately trying to swim to the surface. But my brother kept at it, insisting that I was this angry, violent person taking out my frustrations on him every day. My mom's tears kept coming as she held on to my brother, giving me accusing looks. It was like fighting against a wall of belief in my brother's made-up story. My principal reprimanded me strongly, saying the school didn't tolerate bullying, and these were grounds to suspend me. I pleaded with him not to suspend me, but he shook his head, saying he couldn't just let it slide. I begged him, tears streaming down my face, trying to tell him that I didn't do anything to my brother. The principal firmly told me that I would be suspended for 10 days so that others see this as an example to never bully anyone. It hit me hard, and I started crying even more, practically begging him to reconsider. My parents, angry and embarrassed by the whole situation, dragged me out of the principal's office. I didn't want to leave. I wanted to plead my case and make them understand, but they were having none of it. We left the school, my heart heavy with frustration and humiliation. When we got home in Portland, things took a drastic turn. My dad started packing up my stuff out of the blue. I was shocked, confused, and had no idea what was happening. My mom asked him what he was doing, but he just shouted that he couldn't let me live in the same house as my brother anymore. I was crying, practically on my knees, and pleaded with my brother to tell them the truth. But he stayed cold, unmoved by my emotions. My dad continued packing my things, and then threw the suitcase into our foyer. I clung to my dad's legs, still begging him not to throw me out. It was like a nightmare unfolding. He told me that a bully like me didn't deserve to live in his house, and that he would ask his mother, my grandmother, to come and pick me up if she wanted to do that. It felt like the world had crumbled beneath me. I stood there in shock, surrounded by my belongings scattered in the foyer, kicked out of my own home. Eventually, my grandmother did show up. She gathered all my things and helped me place them in the car. Helping me into the passenger seat, she made sure I had my seatbelt on before walking towards my parents' front door. She rang the doorbell, and when my dad opened the door, she started to yell at him for treating me this way. With stern determination, she warned him that if he ever approached me or tried to contact me again, she wouldn't hesitate to involve the police or CPS, since what he had done to a child like me could potentially wind up with him in jail. My mother, attempting to deflect blame, told her that it was my fault. However, my grandmother wasn't having any of it. She stood her ground, defending me, emphasizing that I was just a child who didn't deserve to be treated in such a heartless manner. That was the first time in my life I felt how powerful my grandmother was. She didn't cower down to my parents, and unlike what they believed, she trusted me. Eventually, we drove away, leaving behind my home, the only place I had ever grown up in. I can't even begin to put into words how indescribable the pain I felt during that time. I remember just crying on the bed and not eating anything despite how much my grandmother urged me to. I told her what my brother had done, and she was shocked as well. She assured me that she believed my side of the story, and I was happy that I at least had one person who had my back. When the 10 days of suspension lifted, the prospect of returning to school felt like stepping back into a lion's den. As I entered the familiar hallways in Boston, the faces of my classmates spoke volumes, judgment whispers, and sidelong glances. The weight of the false accusations continued to linger in the air. Meanwhile, my brother blatantly ignored me and acted like I didn't exist. He had become friends with a few people who believed his side of the story and saw him as the victim of my attacks. No matter how much I tried to tell my side of the story to anyone, it fell on deaf ears. I was an outcast branded with an unjust label that clung to me like a shadow no matter where I went. The classroom, the cafeteria, the corridors, the eyes that met mine were filled with disdain and mistrust. I became a loner. I would keep my head down and attend all my classes, have lunch alone in the cafeteria, and would straight go back home. I had no friends, and it felt like everyone pretty much didn't want me there. Throughout all this, my parents never once called or checked up on me. My grandmother would constantly remind me that this was not my fault and that life would eventually be okay. I graduated high school with good grades and was looking forward to college in San Francisco, where hopefully I would have a better life. It was only when I went away to college that I first experienced what freedom felt like. For the first time, no one was watching over my shoulders, no one was comparing my grades, and no one was trying to compete with me. I met people and formed friendships with like-minded individuals. Despite the emotional and physical scars I had sustained over the years due to my family and peers, I concentrated on putting it all behind me and enjoying this college experience as much as I could. During this time, I discovered my knack for content writing. I had always been someone who wanted to be a writer, but I wasn't sure if it would be sustainable. Hence, I decided to ditch my dream. But to earn some side money, I decided to start writing as a freelancer. I signed up on various freelancing sites, which helped me secure jobs from prominent clients. This is how I slowly started building a portfolio of my work. Throughout college, I maintained this side hustle and never asked for a penny from my parents. When I graduated from college, instead of getting a corporate job, I realized that I could pursue content writing as a full-time job. I was doing quite well because of the multiple clients and the long-term professional relationships I had with them. Having a legitimate freelancing career not only made me financially independent, but also allowed me to travel the world as a digital nomad. Traveling helped heal me from my past, even though it was definitely not easy. I saved up as much as I could and took a chance on myself. Over the years, I have seen so much of the world, and yet I have so much of it left to see. The only person who I considered my family throughout all this was my grandmother, and I absolutely adored her. She was very sad when I moved out, but she understood that I needed to be independent. Despite my hectic schedule, I would make it a point to be there for her whenever I could. I would visit her on the weekends, often sharing meals together or simply sitting on the porch in Los Angeles. Recently, I got done with one of the most important projects of my career. I can't mention the brand, but I was extremely lucky to write blogs and product descriptions for them. After the project was done, I requested the team I worked with to leave me positive reviews. I then took screenshots of some of their reviews to post on my Instagram. As expected, a lot of other content writers reached out to congratulate me. This is how I started getting messages from strangers who also needed help. My relatives noticed this as well, and some of them reached out to congratulate me. Eventually, I was contacted by my college's principal. He wanted me to come for a seminar in New York to talk to students. I was nervous, but I agreed. Standing there sharing my story, I felt like my life had come full circle. Some of my clips started going viral. Last week, I was invited to speak at a local news channel in Chicago. I talked about my journey and experiences. After it aired, I posted clips on Instagram. This is how my relatives and cousins found out how well I was doing. A few days later, I saw 6 missed calls from my mom. After years of silence, I called her back. She congratulated me. Then my dad joined the call. They started asking how much I was earning. I told them it was none of their business. They insisted. Then they asked me for money to renovate their house. I was shocked. I refused. They tried to guilt trip me. I got angry. But then I had an idea. I told them I would help only if they publicly admitted that my brother had lied about me. They refused. Since then, they keep calling me. I ignore them. My brother later texted me. He admitted he lied years ago, but told me to move on and help them. That message felt like a stab in my chest. So I decided to expose everything. I wrote an email to my parents and relatives. I explained everything and attached proof of his confession. Now I am waiting for the fallout. A month later, everything exploded. My family found out the truth. Many relatives apologized. My parents and brothers started harassing me. So I contacted a lawyer. They received a legal notice and stopped contacting me. Now things are finally peaceful. I am focusing on my life. My career is growing. I am healing, and I finally feel free.